Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Became the Master of Angron. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. Behold your boss. Naruto raised his arm high before the horde, brandishing Claw's head like the grisly trophy it was. The warbus visage hung loose in his grasp, his face transfixed not in a silent snarl of pain as one might have expected, but rather, a mad grin. So great was its glee that he half expected it to spring back to life at any moment and start mouthing off at him. It didn't, for now. He wouldn't be surprised if it did. Honestly, he was beginning to expect the unexpected when it came to orcs. Please don't tempt fate. We'll be cleaning up this mess for months. No more surprises, please. Kurama had a point there. He could see clearly now, looking out upon the great green army before him. He'd been clued in as to how orcs reproduced so quickly. They were forged not entirely of flesh, but fungus. There were so many spores in the air from their fallen, and more still stemming from Claw's bleeding head. With each death, there were more spores, and Claw's warband had a great many death indeed. Was the dead war boss smiling at him? Or was that his imagination? He gave the orc's head another shake for good measure, but it remained silent. Still, with his death supposed or otherwise, the pitched battle had ground to a complete halt. At Angron's command, most of the warhounds were already disengaging, pulling back to the fringes of the fight, leaving him standing alone, glowing gold, amidst a sea of green. He supposed that was a show of confidence on the Primarch's part. His boy trusted that he had a plan here. More than that, he trusted him to handily fight his way out if things went south. Everyone was looking to him. Might as well make a good show of it. Securing his hard-won prize to a belt at his side, he fashioned a crude harness there, and swept his free hand forward, conjuring stray motes of golden light in its wake. Clearing his throat, he dared to continue. "This battle is over!" His voice rang out amongst the horde, crisp and clear as a summer's day. "Surrender, and you won't be harmed." He let his gaze rove over the remnants, golden eyes drilling into each and every one of them in return. "I'll even let you leave the planet, if you've lost the will to fight. Go right ahead." Taking that hand, he clenched his fingers into a claw and raked them through the air with intent, weaving glowing trails of light in their wake. "Tell your pals what happened here. Let them know what happens when they cross us." A handful of orcs turned and ran out right before he finished speaking, fleeing back to the broken hulk of their spaceship. He had no doubt that Lot would find a way off-planet by tomorrow. Maybe sooner, if they believed in their ramshackle tech that badly. In the end, the cowards weren't his concern, the others were. Those remaining orcs looked amongst one another, some 700 strong. Some scratched their heads. Others hesitated. Already he could hear them arguing amongst themselves, struggling to make sense of it all. "Oh, now if he killed the boss, does that make him our new boss or what's it? But he's a Yumi. A bloody Yumi can't be the boss, can he? Zog that. He ain't no Yumi. Look it. He's yellow and black." "Yeah, Yumis ain't yellow and black. Does that make him a god then?" Claw called him a god. Claw ain't neither wrong. So is he friends with Gork and Mork, you think? Like some fancy prophet or something? Piss on dat. He's a stinkin' Yumi. Yeah. Another took up the cry. "And all Yumis die." Naruto blew out a sigh as a ripple of discontent passed through the orcs. No, and no. He wasn't giving their Wayag a chance to reignite itself here. "May I?" "By all means." Kurama's Azura mode erupted into existence around him in all his towering fury, bearing 6 arms and 3 vulpine faces, each set in a ferocious snarl meant to rattle their enemies and inspire their allies. Everyone reeled back in surprise at the sudden transformation, but none more so than the orcs themselves. The horde, what remained of it, was suddenly given pause, all their bravado evaporating like so much morning mist in the face of his full might. Honestly, he dared to hope they'd seen sense, then, and perhaps they might have until a plucky orc took a shot at him. The bullet bounced off Kurama's chest, ricocheted, and fizzled harmlessly into the dirt. A blonde brow rose in mild disbelief. "Really, now? And what was that supposed to accomplish?" "Apparently something, because a rallying cry went up from the orcs and yet more rounds pinged off his chakra. None hurt him, not in the least, but he soon understood what their thought process. Gunfire proved he had substance. Form. He could be hit. And in their orky minds, something that could be hit was something that could bleed. And if it could bleed, then it could be killed. Crude logic, but it made sense on orcish terms. Alas, said logic emboldened yet more greenskins to try their luck. Soon enough, momentum built up and the bulk of the horde rushed him, guns blazing, weapons raised high as they hollered at the sky. Their blind bravery was almost admirable. In a sad sort of way, the idiots. All the faith and belief in the world wouldn't save them now. Naruto let them come close. Closer now, then closer still, until he could see the very red of their eyes from his towering vantage. Inhaling deeply, he tilted his head back and raised his arms, causing Kurama to mirror the motion above him. Then, he killed them. It wasn't hard. He was already brimming with power and fresh from the slaughter. These rebellious orcs were a convenient target for him to vent on. With the warhounds having drawn back to safety, there was no need to restrain himself. So he didn't. 6 arms went up, conjuring 2 massive raisin shuriken of golden black chakra within his grasp. 600 orcs went down, literally. Still more came at him, to which he spat a tailed beast bomb directly into their ranks, incinerating a score more. Here at last some faltered, but it was too late. Their more foolish brothers didn't realize the danger and pushed them forward, forcing them into the kill zone. He kept blasting. The outcome was never in question. When the deed was done, their bulky bodies were gone, leaving naught but dirty green ashes fluttering down into a massive crater, the sole testament to their suicidal charge. Let the galaxy watch. Let them see. Let them learn. With a huff, Naruto turned his gaze on the survivors, those who hadn't rushed to their deaths, and stared them down. A gout of steam parted his teeth, little more than an annoyed growl. Any objections? Silence pervaded the horde. None dared move. And then he heard it. Thump. His head whipped toward the sound with a frown, searching for its source. Imagine his surprise when he found it in a lone orc. Larger than the rest yet smaller than Claw, the big brute nevertheless stood tall, though his right eye lay covered by a grisly black eye patch. He instinctively labeled him as OL1 Eye. Much to his confusion, the Goliath stepped out past his kin and slammed a fist against its battered metal chest plate, producing an audible thunk that echoed into eternity. He raised his gaze and bellowed out 3 words, a simple set of syllables that would change the galaxy forever. For the boss! It was just that one orc. A single soldier amongst many. A mere ripple in a pond. Naruto blinked at him, utterly flummoxed by his behavior. The orc pounded his chest again, yet again now, and again. As he looked on aghast, other orcs began to mimic the first. Some began stomping their feet, creating a thundering cadence. One by one the survivors took up the chant and began pound power fists against their armor, their chests, whatever they could find. More shouts joined his, each louder than the last, until they were all he could hear. For Gork and Mork's prophet, for the new war chief, for the biggest fox, for the Naruto, for the god! Shouts of his name soon drowned those out, threatening to deafen him outright. All in all, there weren't many orcs. Maybe 850, 51 at a stretch. Not even a fourth of the original horde, and most of them were wounded. Yet his heart still swelled with their chants all the same. It was more followers than he dared dream of before, and hearing them chanting his name felt good, great, even vitaminate. He shouldn't want this. He meant to cow them into submission, make them leave, not get worshipped by them. Congratulations on failing upwards. Not helping, Kurama. At a loss, he looked out past the sea of green for some small semblance of sanity, only to find a grinning Angron also thumping a fist against his chest, mirroring the orcish cadence with his own. Naturally that got his son started, which meant the gladiators were determined to outdo the warhounds, and soon enough near everyone was pounding their chests, bar Isha and the Emperor, and then she started banging her chest. It did fascinating things to her bosom. Gah. Focus! In the end, he was left balking at the goddess as she beamed at him across the battlefield, projecting a rich wave of encouragement his way as only she could. He took some solace in that, but it was the Emperor's reaction that truly concerned him. The self-proclaimed master of mankind crossed both arms before his broad chest and silently stared his way, as though he were only just now seeing him in a new light. The light of one who had grown from a malleable minion into a great general, or a potential threat. He wasn't entirely sure that was a good thing. To make matter worse, Korn himself began to laugh his ear, bellowing with mirth. He bridled at the intrusion, but no mental attack came, No pain, no nothing. Only words. Good, good, much blood shall be shed from this day forth. You do me proud, my champion. He shot a mental jab back at him. I ain't yours. In an instant the moment stretched out, seconds dragging on. So much sand in an hourglass. Are you not? The Lord of Murder continued to chuckle, seemingly bemused by his defiance. You and the fox were born and bred for battle. You reap lives with every step you take, and so the masses flock to you. Such is the way of the strong. I know your thoughts. You wonder why I do not seek to claim you myself. There was never a need. I saw you the moment you landed on this world. You earned my favor when you taught that boy to kill as you do. You were mine the moment your rebellion began, when you chose to step back on the battlefield. He refused to believe that bloody bastard was acting like this was foretold, like everything was all part of his plan. Would you believe me if I said it was? No. He didn't believe him for a second. He'd already had his fill of prophecies, and then Kurama, bless his smug soul, came barreling into the conversation. Do you really think we'll fall to you that easy? It is not a prophecy, merely the truth. You simply have yet to accept it. And you will in time. Kill your new followers or don't. It matters little to me. Remember, I care not from where the blood flows, so long as it does. Naruto all but spat the words back at the blood god. As you're so fond of saying, you're learning, good. I am a far kinder patron than Tzeentch. You have but to open yourselves to me. For a moment that eerie voice lost its bass tenor and warped, shifted, becoming something else entirely. I seek not to make you a slave to pleasure like Tzeentch, or ply your brains for secrets as Tzeentch would, nor bind you to the so-called imperium of the anathema. I only wish you to be all that you can be. He scowled inwardly, refusing to rise to the bait. And what's that? Free. Reality snapped back like a rubber band, and with it, he heard the orcs shouting once more, chanting his name. Naruto! 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 This was the start. More than that. A beginning. Heat speared through his whiskered cheeks. Come, child. Be all that you were meant to be. That settled it. He wouldn't kill them, if only to spike corn. Maybe he could use this. Make the orcs better. Mold them into something more than what they were. Or barring that, he could throw them at his enemies. Swept up in the moment, he held out his right hand, curled his fingers into a fist, and slammed it against his chest. Hear me! His voice cut through their shouts like a blade through so much meat. There will be more fights to come. Follow me and I'll give you real enemies to fight. Worthy adversaries, the best damn battles you could ever ask for. Who's with me? His orcs roared their approval. Gork and Mork looked upon their new not green kin. Gork and Mork were pleased by his speech. Gork and Mork made ready for war. And Das, what happened? The one-armed orc finished his wild tale around the fire. Gave us a right proper crumpin' he did. Tore the boss's head right off. With one hand, you did? Another orc sat across from him, gnawing on a hunk of meat. How's you know? 'Cause you let me and the lads go. The one-armed orc bashed him over the head with a club. Told me and boys to sod off and learn our lesson. We cobbled a ship to Geetha and beat it back here. He said he'd tan our hides if we didn't. Did he now? The meat-bearing orc scowled at the maimed orc, intrigued as he and his boys listened. Who's this blonde Humi then? Well, he said his name was Naruto. Boss called them Whiskers. Funny ting though, he took prisoners. Or why'd he go and do dat? Dunno. Some of our boys is following him now. They was starting to paint themselves orange and yellow and black when we left a few days back. A silence passed between the two. We gonna fight them again? Course we is. Not a single casualty? Naruto found himself somewhat surprised by the battlefield report. Least of all when the Emperor himself was the one to supply it. That alone should have made him suspicious, and maybe it did a little, but the fact remained that he hadn't expected to be given such news in the first place. In the days that followed the orcish rout, everyone had been rather busy, be it battlefield cleanup, disposing of corpses, burning away the spores, or simply rebuilding that which had been destroyed. Isha was all too happy to regrow their lost forests, while Angron was tasked with matters of morale and keeping an eye on their new allies. Magnus actually proved a boon on that front, as he was only an astral projection and his true body was leagues away on Prospero. He hadn't been able to participate directly in the battle, but he soon proved his mettle in other ways. Many of his converted orcs were very curious about the glowing red Yumi, and had taken to following young Magnus about, asking all sorts of odd questions. Especially their weird boys, whom he had come to understand were the orcish equivalent of what the Emperor called psychers. He'd seen him teaching them a few things. Surely nothing could go wrong on that front, right? As for him? Healing, so much healing, all of the bloody healing. He'd regrown arms, restored legs, repaired eyes, helped apothecaries stitch organs back together and more. All in all, he'd learned more about battlefield surgery than he ever wished to. It was a brutal, bothersome blur of work that kept both his mind and his hands busy. But now that he'd emerged on the other side, exhaustion was beginning to set in. Part of the reason why his mind was wandering, wisey, kinda difficult to think straight when you've given your all saving so many lives. He hadn't experienced chakra deprivations in years, yet after nearly 9 days of non-stop work, he found himself teetering on the edge. He'd even tasked a battalion of shadow clones for the sole purpose of gathering up Senjutsu chakra just so he didn't collapse. Honestly, he was probably going to pass out for a week once all this was said and done, and he dreaded the idea of being dragged into the warp during his dreams, but right now he didn't have time to sleep, which brought him back to the present matter. Angron's legion practically worshipped him for his selfless deeds. He wasn't gonna get away from that grandfather title anytime soon. Nurgle's shattered shards were probably howling in the void at having said title usurped in such a manner. And now he was being told they hadn't suffered a single loss in the battle? Who, what, when, where and why? There was luck, and then there was life laughing in his face. He was beginning to think this was the latter. How? He all but croaked out the word. It doesn't make any sense. When you transformed on the battlefield, that golden light of yours spread across the field and saved a great many who would have otherwise perished. The Emperor explained with a bemused chuckle. To say nothing of your multiple doppelgangers. That grim golden gaze considered him for a long moment, as though he were weighing his worth again, like some diamond in the rough. I was unaware you could split your attention on so many fronts and still retain your power. He considered lying and saying otherwise, but thought better of it. Well, I can't, technically. I only get their memories once they dispel. The Emperor seemed very interested in that. Do you now? Naruto shrugged thoughtlessly. Helps me learn faster. Is it possible to learn such a power? Now it was his turn to laugh. Not from me, it ain't. I wouldn't know how to go about teaching someone. You need chakra and well, He waved a hand, hoping he got the message. Besides, even if he could grant him such a power, he knew it would be a bad idea. This guy was already tough enough. The last thing he needed was an extra edge against him. I do not have it. The Emperor granted him a low grunt, finishing his sentence for him. I understand. A golden hand came down upon his shoulder and clasped it firmly. Regardless, you have done well in culling these Xenos and cowing the rest. I trust you don't intend to allow your new followers to expand out of control? Not on my watch, no. 150 orcs were bad enough. The last thing he needed was thousands. He'd have to keep a very close eye on them and have a great deal of fire on hand to prevent a population explosion. That was a hurdle he'd have to cross, and soon, if he ever planned to take them off Nysaria. Which he just might. If only because he didn't know what to do with them just yet. You do realize I cannot allow the orcs to spread unchecked. He crossed both arms before his chest. I'll handle it, alright? Leave it with me. Good. Sensing his concern, the Emperor nodded once. I'll say it again, you acquitted yourself admirably. Perhaps I should name you my general in the battles to come. Something in his soul sank a little. There's gonna be more fights like the last one, huh? A great many, the master of mankind said. I could think of no one better suited to the task than you. Naruto tried not to preen and failed miserably. Huh. So that was what praise felt like. A man could get used to this. Sure, they hadn't always seen eye to eye and probably wouldn't on a great many issues. But he wanted to get along with this guy. Whatever his faults and flaws, he genuinely seemed to have the best intentions. If not for aliens, then at least mankind, even if said intentions were a little flawed. Maybe they could work out their differences. And if not, he'd cross that bridge when he came to it, or burn it down. He had yet to decide. But if he led from the front, how much senseless violence could he prevent? The Emperor, as he'd learned, was something of a blunt instrument at the best of times. He could be a clever schemer when he wished to be, but from what he'd seen thus far, he often ran roughshod over the very people he proclaimed to protect. That made him dangerous. Was it not his duty to prevent such a danger? He'd already prevented him from thoughtlessly sweeping Angron and his legion off his glorious crusade. Should not do the same for others? Some might call that heresy. Maybe it was. Thankfully, he had nothing but good intentions at heart. And then the god's damned golden guy went and threw another spanner into his plans. I will be leaving for Caucus soon to seek out another of my sons, the Emperor declared most abruptly, startling him. Perhaps you and Angron would do me the honor of accompanying. Accompanying whom? Isha's melodious voice intoned just behind them. By all means, continue your conversation without me. Naruto craned his neck backward with a bemused sigh. He'd been wondering when she'd reappear. Her dress was smudged and hands quite dirty, seemed someone had been digging in the dirt again, but despite all that, the goddess looked absolutely radiant. Even now her green eyes gleamed, quietly preening with life and daring the master of mankind to finish his sentence. It's so nice to see the two of you getting along without me. She sidled up to him with a dangerous smile. What did I miss? The Emperor's smile faded. I was merely discussing our next course of action. And what course would that be? With a wave of her hands, Isha shed the soil from her arms and used it to create a lovely little garden underfoot. My little kin will surely reach Nysaria soon. It's imperative that we be here to greet them and make a favorable first impression upon them. We cannot afford to go gallivanting about the stars on a whim. Angron's father stood his ground. Caucus is close. It won't take long at all. Isha tilted her head and granted him a motherly smile. How close? The Emperor's regal visage settled into a stoic scowl. Perhaps a week or so. The Eldari goddess clicked her tongue in mild admonishment. That's quite some time. I am merely looking after my sons, as you look after your kin. Her ears twitched. Are you? It seems to me that you are eager to continue your crusade. Hey! Naruto flung out his right arm to the side, cutting them short before they could come to blows or worse. Don't fight. I'll go. The Emperor radiated triumph, supreme in his smug satisfaction. Excellent, but Angron stays. He finished. And I'm bringing the orcs with me. Said Triumph died an ugly death. As you wish. Isha made a pained noise. Must you? Yes. He wasn't entirely sure why, but from the moment the Emperor mentioned Caucus, he'd felt something nagging at him, urging him onward. Neither the voices of chaos, nor the Emperor's psychic manipulation, or even Kurama, but a feeling. Call it instinct, call it his sixth sense, or what have you, but he couldn't shake it. He must go. And really, how hard could it be to save one kid? Look, it's better if the orcs follow me than not. I can't exactly leave them here to their own devices, you know. Isha brushed up against him, taking his hand in hers, distracting him. Will you return quickly? The Emperor exhaled heavily. We will move with the utmost of speed and destroy the planet if need be. By all accounts, Caucus is a most inhospitable planet with little of value, beyond my son. Isha blew out a sigh. Naruto winced. Now wait a sec, there's no need to nuke him. No. Isha agreed with the Emperor, surprising him. He's right. You must make haste. I will remain here with Angron and watch over Nysaria in your absence. Her fingers stroked his, lingering for a moment before pulling away. I pray you have a safe journey. He winced, worried that he might have upset her. I really am sorry about this. Don't be. She unbent enough to deliver a swift peck his cheek. If you feel you must do this, then by all means do so. But please, return quickly, I shall miss you. She squirmed a little as she said the words, clearly looking for something. Her action sparked something in him and he drew her close, taking her in his arms, kissing her deeply. She melted into him with a pleased sigh, all but pressing her forehead to his, hands cupping his cheeks as his hands dipped around her waist. He held her like that for a long moment, savoring her, reveling in the warmth her presence brought. He wished the kiss could be deeper, that it could last longer, that the Emperor wasn't watching them both like a hawk, ready to swoop in at the slightest sign of weakness. But it was not to be. What was the saying Jiraiya once told him? Third time's the charm? He'd make certain of that. Isha drew away first, cheeks rosy, eyes half-lidded. I'll see you soon, beloved. Leaving him one last lingering kiss on the lips, she departed, hips swinging. Naruto watched her go with a fond sigh. She was up to something. He just knew it. The moment Isha was out of sight of the tents, she veered off and changed direction. Her world was spinning, her thoughts a tangled knot of writhing desire. She needed a distraction. Now, she simply must find Talia. Her little kin was a fighter after all, no matter her current station. She'd both blooded and acquitted herself well in last week's battle. Doubtless the orcs would think maids deadly warriors henceforth, but she'd steadfastly avoided Angron since, much to the Primarch's disappointment. That wouldn't do. No, it wouldn't do at all. Naturally, she was going to remedy that while Naruto was away. She'd gotten the idea of maids from Naruto's memories, you see, a rare glimpse into his world when their minds connected in the warp. She'd seen so very many things that day. Many made her glad. Some were quite sad, and a few left her quite mad. But not this. Good heavens no, never this. This was a pastime she enjoyed most wonderfully. All this poking and prodding, this kneading and nudging. Matchmaking was such fun, moreover, it kept her distracted. And the whispers of she who thirst away from her. For now, the orc struggled. Bound and strapped to a table, contained within a cell, he raged against his cage. His name was Tzeentch, YC, and he wasn't happy. Not one bloody bit. Nope, no sire. He wasn't like them other orcs, YC. He hadn't sworn allegiance to this new, golden god of theirs, and he bonked the first git who tried to convert him, then another who tried to bonk him in return. Much bonking was had that day. It was a good day, until the other gits grabbed him and threw him in this cage. He'd been trapped here ever since. Stupid gits. He'd show them. Or so Tzeentch thought, until someone shuffled in. Some old and beardy Yumi in a black cloak. Couldn't see the git's face. Had a real long staff. Weird fella. "Hello, little orcling," the man said. "Would you like me to set you free?" That voice sounded familiar. Nah, probably didn't matter. "How'd you get in here? You ain't a purple Yumi, is ya?" the man tittered. "No, why?" Tzeentch shrugged against his bonds. "Can't shoot a git if yous can't see 'em. Think smart," the old man chuckled. "I could always leave you here if you prefer." His eyes bulged. "No, not dat. Anything but dat." He wanted to strangle that yellow Yumi. He kept talking about being friends and everything, but Tzeentch just wanted to kill him. No more talk. No more words. Tzeentch was Tzeentch. Rip and tear. Bonk and cleave. Spit and sunder. None of that boring yappin'. If he had to live through one more day a dad, he'd go mad. "Sure, fine," he cried out. Whatever you want. Just let me loose." The old man snapped his fingers. "Done." Just like that, his shackles fell away, but the cage remained. "Was this?" The old man leaned against his staff and rasped a laugh. "Silly orc. You should have specified the terms." In an instant, he walked through the bars and grabbed Tzeentch by the face, slamming him down against cold, unfeeling metal. When he tried to rise, the old man bashed him down again, stunning him. "Zog dat. This was no Yumi at all. Umis weren't this strong." "Wait. No, I didn't agree to this. Whatever I want," the old man said. "I believe those were your words." Gah. Head hurt. Couldn't think straight. "Don't worry, you'll still be you in a sense." The hooded figure cackled, revealing eerie glowing eyes of ever-rippling azure beneath his cowl. "Just a little change." A spark shot down his arm, rattling his bones. "I've always found your orcish magic amusing. It works not solely out of faith, but belief. What would happen if I were to convince you that you, say, someone else?" Tzeentch struggled, grasping at the withered human, to no avail. "Wait. Human? No. Yumi. Human. Yumi? Oh, I don't like the sound of dat." "No, of course you don't." His captor chuckled. "But I do. And you won't remember this conversation." The orc lashed out, but his fist punched through an empty cloak. Something struck him from behind, driving him to his knees. Wings. They were wings. Weren't they? Why did the Yumi have wings? "You gave yourself to me." There was power in the old man's voice now, rippling like one of dem weird boys, but worse. "You swore yourself to me, did you not? I helped you escape. I never specified what would come afterward. You whingy birdie bastard. I'll break your bloody beak." The staff tapped his chest, stunning him. His muscles locked up. Now, none of that. Wouldn't do for you to make a ruckus and get discovered now, would we?" Another bolt of pain racked Tzeentch's body, causing his vision to blur, turning thoughts to so much cloudy mist. "Why is you doing this? Now you're asking the right questions, my little orcling." There was an eerie mark on the man's face he could see now, glowing blue like all the rest of him. "I just need to change your mind, and the rest will be done by psi energy, obedient to your faith. But you won't be worshipping me. Oh no. That would be boring. And we can't have boring, can we? Thresh whimpered. I don't understand. Of course you don't, dull creature. The madman laughed, spraying blue bile in his face. Allow me to clarify. A certain Annam once thought, if I throw enough women at him, he'll be loyal. And I heard that thought, as I hear all things. And I'm hardly about to let him, or chaos forbid Corn, get one over on me now. So just hold still, while I make a few adjustments. A gnarled old hand squeezed his jaw, forcing his tusked mouth shut with impossible force that no Yumi should have. A bolt of blue and green lightning flashed forth in the cage to set his body aflame, muffling his cries of agony. The fires spread with wild hunger, consuming Thresh, followed by the cage, then the tent around him. Just like that, the orc was changed, and the old man cackled. Tzeentch rubbed his hands together with a merry cackle as he slipped out the tent. Already he could feel his host falling apart, crumbling from the inside out, organs rotting, flesh changing, all becoming dust. But that was fine. This vessel was never meant to last. It would be ashes before long, all traces of him long gone, while the forces of the anathema and Uzumaki scratched their heads and tried to puzzle it out. By the time they did, he would be away, laughing at them. A bargain was a bargain, after all, though this had weakened him somewhat. An old man had offered him life, his very soul, in return for the salvation of his sickly granddaughters. He'd seen the opportunity to sow some chaos and pounced upon it. They'd grow to be loyal followers in time, and through them, word of him would spread, which would bring about more change. A fine trade indeed, for was fantasy limited to the confines of imagination? Would you call it a powerless creation? No, he was the Lord of Change. Reality bent to his whim. Nothing wrong with a little chaos, he found. It was all part of the plan. Fire in the camp! Naruto could still hear the shouts as he barged his way through the mess. Isha followed after him, drawn from whatever she was doing by the noise. She sniffed once, shook her head, then frowned, looking to him. I smell chaos. No kidding. This who would do this? Surely not Corn. Slanish? A merry giggle echoed gleefully in the back of his head. Not me. But they did wonderful work. Nergal was very much lacking a body at the moment, and Corn was quite so that left. Barging into the scorched tent, he prepared himself for the worst. He'd expected to return and find an orc in its cage, and in a sense he did. This was both an orc and not an orc. A tall yet buxom young woman awaited them, a green devastating beauty bearing deep green skin and slightly pointed ears, her hair an ashen black, framing a lovely face from which startled red eyes shone. Someone had dressed up in a ridiculously tight-made outfit akin to Talia's almost identical right to down her white stockings with black heels, and while he might have thought that Isha's work, her shock was quite transparent. A note lay at the foot of her cage, written in a quivering scrawl. You're welcome! Naruto stomped on it. Tzeentch! Alas, that got her attention. The orcish maid took one look at him and sniffled pitifully, tears in her eyes. Please let me out, master! Isha began to giggle. Naruto flailed his arms at the sight before them. He hissed. Stop that! It ain't funny! Her laughter redoubled. It really is! Somewhere in the immaterium, he could have sworn Tzeentch was laughing at him. Space travel proved an interesting experience, to say the least. Naruto had his reservations about it, naturally. He didn't much like the idea of being stuffed in a metal box to begin with, let alone leaving the planet. Traveling at interstellar speeds? Decidedly less so, because apparently said interstellar travel entailed passing through the warp. Even with the Geller field up, he could feel the focus of the three fixed firmly upon him, gnawing at the edges of his consciousness. Like a swarm of flies buzzing in his face, a ringing in his ears, an itch in the back of his mind he couldn't quite scratch. Honestly, it was enough to drive a man mad. Without Kurama and a host of other distractions, he probably would have gone insane long ago. He knew was taking a mighty risk here, traveling with the Emperor Biggie as he'd taken to calling him internally since he didn't know the man's name yet. Here he was, risking himself on what some might say a reckless venture, all for the sake of saving a single solitary soul. Someone he didn't even know, only that they needed help. Iruka would have been so proud. The thought drew a little smile to his lips as he went about his work. Angron hadn't been happy to see him go, but the up-and-coming paladin understood the necessity of it. If someone, somewhere, somehow was suffering as he had suffered, then it was his duty to aid them. Besides, this gave the boy a chance to better familiarize himself with his legion while he was away, the better to integrate himself with his own sons. Likewise, Isha had opted to remain behind, staying with the Emperor's son in her entirety, if only to better aid him in the trials to come. He missed her. He missed Angron. Heck, he missed them both. They'd shared a meal together, bid their heartfelt goodbyes, promised to see one another again soon, and off he went. In the end, he'd left a score of freshly empowered shadow clones behind with them and ordered at least 3 to keep themselves alive at all costs until his return. Still, the long trip to Caucus gave him time to read up on the planet as well as figure out how to use a data slate. For the technologically inept such as he, they were a right and proper Tzeentch to get through, and no one could tell him otherwise. He didn't deny their usefulness, but there was just something unnatural about them. Whatever happened to good old-fashioned pen and paper? Tossing one slate aside, he picked up another and continued reading the information that the Emperor's agents had gathered for him. Caucus was a world governed by a theocracy called the Covenant, dedicated to the worship of a polytheistic religion they named the Old Faith, which, surprise, surprise, centered on the worship of the Chaos Gods. Veridesh, the capital city of the world, also known as the City of Grey Flowers, respected its holy leaders above all. The world itself was arid, partial sustainability, prevalent desert conditions extending to the edge of the habitable polar regions, equatorial belt temperatures exceeded human tolerability at zenith of planetary cycle, and other, fancier words he didn't quite understand, but got the gist of nevertheless. At 3 times the size of Terra, with a fraction of the population, it took almost 5 standard years to turn once around its merciless sun. And it turned with great patience. A local day apparently lasted a Terran week. A week lasted a Terran month. From orbit, its skin was a visage of unforgiving mountain ranges and auburn desert plains, veined by threading rivers. It was in dry lands like these that humanity's ancestors, the very first men and women on the world no longer called Earth, rose in lands that would become known as the cradle of civilization. Even so, it had an extended day-night cycle to which humans struggled to adapt. As a result, Caucasian civilizations developed a unique method for keeping track of time. Each local day was broken up into 7 sub-bays of approximately 24 solar hours each, known as dawn away, mornday, long noon, post-noon, dusk eve, cold fall, and high night. These sub-bays were further divided into 3 segments: wake rise, wake main, and rest eve, to correlate more closely with the stages of a Terran day. The hottest time of day on Caucus was the wake main of long noon, and the coldest was rest eve of high night. Furthermore, mountains and deserts dominated the arid surface of Caucus, and human civilization clustered along its coastlines, relying on water and air transportation to travel between settlements. Strange, crumbling edifices dotted the planet's landscape, and no amount of exploration and research could fathom their purpose. On and on it went, over and over again. So much data. If he had to read one more slate on this pugnacious planet, his brain was going to explode. Oi, boss! Heads up! Exhaling in relief, he scrolled away last of his data slates and swayed backward, dodging a green fist as he went. Without looking up from his work, he swept a leg out, tripping his attacker, grabbed another one by the arm, smashed in the face of another with said data slate, and stomped on the head of a third, leaving the quartet a groaning mess at his feet. To call what he was doing multitasking would be insufficient. He had clones left behind on Nasiria, clones reading data slates he couldn't be bothered with, clones wandering around the Emperor's ship asking questions, and of course, hidden shadow clones watching his back just in case someone tried to stab him and said back. Clones upon clones upon clones. All while he himself was brawling with the boys. This wasn't multitasking, this was multi-living. He could already feel the migraine coming from absorbing all their memories. His task completed, he set the slate aside and planted a fist on his hip, where he still kept Claw's severed head as a trophy. Even after several days, it hadn't dissolved, although its jaw had long since frozen itself shut in rigor mortis and ceased leaking spores. Did that mean he was still alive? Granted, the idea of a talking head both amused and terrified him, but for some reason, he couldn't quite bring himself to be rid of it just yet. Call him sentimental. Bemused, he turned his gaze upon the groaning greenskins sprawled across the metal decking. They had spirit if nothing else, these orcs of his. What have we learned? Oel One-Eye disentangled himself from the rest and rose to his feet to tower over him with a confused expression. Teamwork makes the dream work? Exactly. Naruto took the fist from his hip and pounded it into an open palm. Forget beating me, you'll never get the upper hand in a fight if you don't work together. He pitched his words to carry towards the rest of the orcs, each of whom were watching intently, waiting for their turn. I promised you all good fights, didn't I? A roar of assent passed through his minions. 150 orcs, plus one terribly embarrassed orc maid had been confined to the cargo hold of the Emperor's vessel, out of sight of prying eyes. He understood the reasoning for that even if he didn't wholly agree with it given their excitability, but he wasn't about to leave them down here in the dark. Hence why he made it his mission to spar with them, each and every one of them, all of them. He raised his voice to carry further, addressing his horde. You've all had a chance to fight me now, haven't you? A thunderous cry answered him. He spread his arms wide, riling them up further. Are you not entertained? More than 100 stomping feet were his reward. Orcs like to fight. He'd already known that, but moreover, they liked to fight him. The lads were learning as they fought, and maybe that was a bad thing. But so long as he could aim them at his enemies or better yet, teach them to be better, he wouldn't cast them aside. Now fight amongst yourselves but without killing one another. He kept his voice sharp, maintaining his hard-won aura of commando. Last orc standing will become my general. More than a few of them looked between one another and began cracking their knuckles. Naruto stepped back, content to let them at one another. Almost immediately, Thresh was there with a warm towel to dry his forehead. He muttered his thanks and kept his eyes fixed forward as she went about her work. Tzeentch had clearly done something to the orc maid, if only because she wasn't acting a damn thing like her kin. Not around him, at least. Much to his surprise, the orcs had accepted her rather easily, as only orcs could. She's a maid, den? Like that one Eldar get with all the frills? Dem maids are proper strong, ain't they? Aye, she killed a lot of our boys. S'all right den, innit? Works fair me. She didn't seem to bear him an ill will, none that he could sense at any rate, but he was wary around her all the same, no matter how amusing Isha might find her. The Emperor had suggested burning her alive on principle, and while he was hardly about to do that, that didn't make him any less cautious around her. He'd adopt a wait and see approach towards her for the time being, and if she proved treacherous, well, he'd burn that bridge when he came to it. Kurama sighed. Ready to break out the heavy flamer so easily? Seems the Imperium's rubbing off on you, he scowled. Can you blame me? Isha and Angron alone had his trust, if only because they'd earned it. He'd see where these orcs went, be it into his good graces, or face first into the meat grinder. He wasn't blind to the byplay. He'd need a way to keep his new army in check, and already had a few ideas on that front, but for now, sparring or crumping as they liked to call it with the lads was the best way to keep them in check. Now you're thinking like an orc. Was it his imagination, or had Claw's head chuckled just now? He glanced at it, but the bastard's jaw remained shut. One of the shorter orcs suddenly thrust a green fist in the air, startling him. Was one a fight to made first? Thresh looked his way, cautiously curious. Master? Naruto waved her on. Have fun. Anything that got the boys out of his hair for a bit. Thresh needed no more encouragement than that. She stalked forward, already cracking her knuckles as she went. Different she might be, she still had all the strength of her kin, and by the excited gleam in her eyes, she was still very much an orc at heart. It did not end well for her brothers. Golden light emanated behind him, heralding a new arrival as he watched the beatdown. You do realize fighting orcs only makes them stronger, no? Naruto craned his neck back and up to beam at Angron's father. Hey, Big E! Was wondering when you'd come down here. He wasn't surprised when the Emperor sought him out. If anything, he was surprised it took so long. But the larger man had paused and was looking at him most strangely. What did you just call me? Well, he shrugged. I don't know your real name and I can't go around calling you Emperor all the time, so Biggie it is. We still good on that alliance? We are, came the solemn reply. It occurred to me that if I turned on you, you would not die easily. No. He pivoted to glare up at him. I wouldn't. He wasn't entirely certain he would win, mind you, but he wouldn't go quietly into that good night. He'd make the Emperor pay for it. Besides, any battle on their part would shatter Angron's loyalty, and instantly turned Isha and the Eldari as a whole against the Imperium, which frankly had enemies aplenty already. Still, he couldn't help but pry. "And what brought you to that conclusion?" The Emperor sighed, a surprisingly human sound. "If I were to treat you as an enemy, I would be doing their work for them. Chaos wishes to see an end to both of us. I will not help those ruinous powers achieve their goal." Naruto tilted his head, vaguely recalling a well-worn phrase from his own world years before. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend, an ally at the very least," came the counter. "So long as you refrain from attacking me, I shall show you the same courtesy." Naruto released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. That was good. Very good. He was only 2 planets in with the Emperor as of yet, and he hadn't seen this Terra of his yet, nor how he ran these so-called crusades of his. He'd give him the benefit of the doubt, for now. They'd be having words about those servitors of his later, though. He had questions about them. And this Mechanicum he'd mentioned. A sudden cry from the orcs captured his attention, and he looked back to find Thresh standing amongst a pile of exhausted lads. Though her clothes were tattered and bosom heaving with heavy breaths, she nevertheless held her first high, red eyes blazing with triumph. As he looked on, the orc made through her head back and hollered her triumph before pivoting to flash him a winning grin. Kurama snorted. "Feisty little thing," Tzeentch tittered in his head. "You're welcome, cheeky little troll." Heedless of the byplay, the Emperor snorted in mild amusement, or derision. He could never be sure. "It would seem you have yourself a general. Do try not to breed with this one." Naruto clicked his tongue. "Hey now, I did not come here to provoke you, in any case." The Emperor held out a hand, revealing a slim metal discus and a holographic map etched within. "I've identified the whereabouts of my son. I thought it might behoove you to know his exact location on the planet. My spies suggest he is currently placed amongst the nomads' caravans wandering the wastelands of Caucus. It is there that we shall find him." As though he couldn't already sense the boy below, a burning beacon of hope in his mind's eye, Naruto fixed him with a stern look regardless. "What did you say his name was again?" "Lorger." Naruto blew out a sigh. "Angron, Magnus, and Lorger." "Yup, that settled it. You're not one for normal names, are ya?" "They are my sons." The Emperor said that as though it somehow explained everything. "I named each of them with great care. Are you sure they're not your tools?" The Emperor went terribly still. Naruto lifted his chin. There it was, the gauntlet flung down at his feet. He wouldn't stand idly by and let the Emperor badmouth his allies no matter how unconventional they might be. He'd already shut that shit down when he'd spoken ill at Isha, and he wasn't about to tolerate it here. "Mock me, and I'll mock you right back." He hoped the warning was overt enough, else their alliance was going to prove a short one. "Say," he said apropos of nothing, seeking to change the subject. "How does that foresight of yours work?" Big E glowered at him. "And how, pray tell, do you know of that?" Angron mentioned it. "Did he now?" Much his amusement, the master of mankind took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. "I'm also told you can read minds." His smile became a tad more strained. "Angron told you that too, didn't he?" Honestly, that boy was entirely too honest for his own good. Couldn't even fault him for it, really. It was simply his nature to be brave, brash, and bold. He made a fine paladin in the wars to come, him and his legion alike. They could sow such good. But Big E was looking to him for an answer, may as well give it, to an extent. "And no, before you ask, I can't read yours." He tapped a finger to his skull as he spoke, whiskered cheeks dimpling. "It's more a matter of sensing intent. I can read someone's mind if I get up close and touch him, sure. But I had to learn that skill and—" "You can sense ill intent?" Naruto frowned at the sudden interjection. This guy really wasn't used to waiting, was he? "I wouldn't say sense so much as detect." The Emperor considered him anew. "You seem to delight in surpassing my expectations." Something in his voice caused his hackles to rise. "Is that a good thing?" "At times." The larger man laid an armored hand on his shoulder. "But not always. So long as the ruinous powers remain, however, we have common cause." The words were an olive branch, insomuch as Big E could offer one. He smirked at him in return. "Pretty sure they're gonna be around for a while." The so-called master of mankind granted him a rare, genuine smile. "Then I expect we shall remain allies for quite some time. We'll see." He had a fair idea of how things on Caucus would play out. An entrance would be necessary. Already he could sense the taint of the ruinous powers upon the planet below. Caucus wasn't consumed, but it was affected. He could feel it tingling at the edge of his senses, a faint hum that set his teeth on edge. He ground them together as a muscle jumped in his jaw. Now that he was within range of the planet, he could clearly sense something amiss. Chaos was here. Of course we are. Slaanesh crooned in his ear, the darkest of depravity. We're everywhere. And yet you left Mother behind. Most unwise, he snorted. Isha's tough. She'll be fine. Will she? I trust her. Unlike you, but I could be so much more if you just gave in. Kurama shooed her off with an annoyed hiss. Away, harlot! The Emperor was still speaking as he shook her voice away. Have you ever dropped from orbit before? Flooding his entire body with Kurama's chakra, the wayward warrior allowed himself to gleam gold and black once more. Sounds fun. You're coming with? I shall join you after you've located Lorgar. Much to his surprise, the Emperor demurred. There is a matter that requires my personal attention. The orcs didn't take that lying down, naturally. The second Naruto looked back, Thresh and the other orcs started protesting. Master, no! One Eye was right behind her. Oh, you ain't leaving us behind. What's going with ya? Fine. He raised a hand to ward their complaints off. But you're using drop pods. Pretty sure orcs can't survive an orbital drop. Thresh perked up. Was gonna fight then? Probably. They could always scour the pods and the cargo hold with fire later. Better safe than sorry. Couldn't risk spores spreading. The Emperor called out after him suddenly. Naruto. He paused in mid-step and craned his neck back to regard him one last time. If you detect any signs of chaos below, destroy it, and any who worship it. Do not allow the rot to spread. Finally, something they agreed on. If this planet was as bad as he thought it would be, well, better safe than sorry, he supposed. He was hardly about to let Nergal regain a foothold on the material plane after his corporeal form had been destroyed. He flared his chakra cloak further to shield himself from the vacuum of space and strode toward the nearest airlock. One more unto the breach. The void awaited. Long had Lorgar waited. Through the fire and the flames, the beatings and the pain, he had held fast to his faith, never once wavering in his devotion, believing in the arrival of a great golden god. It had been hard at times. For all his fiery words and sordid speeches, Father did not share his worship of the true faith. Indeed, he often had him harmed because of said belief, for the mere act of speaking against the so-called worship of the Four. But how could he not speak of him? To be silent was a far greater sin, was it not? Surely it was. His dreams had been intense as of late. Visions coming one after the other until he had difficult discerning the waking world from that of his dreams. Today, Father was disciplining him for that yet once more. He'd accidentally shattered a jug of water yesterday and as punishment had been bid to walk the desert barefoot for a week without food or water, wearing naught but the rags on his broad back. Painful, but Lorgar knew he could do it. He was hardier than most boys, bigger and stronger, too. He could endure, no, he would endure, even if it hurt. Father always seemed eager to punish him for even the slightest infraction. He didn't understand why. Corfaren was a mysterious man at the best of times, but he did raise and care for him, sometimes. Sometimes Lorgar caught himself wanting to hurt his foster father, wrap his hands around his neck and squeeze. It would be easy, too. Downright effortless, even. None in the camp could stop him. The surety of it frightened him. How easily he could fall to violence. Shuddering but a little, he pushed his darker emotions away and so he trudged ever onward, doing his best to ignore the searing sun beating down against his back. He was meant to be more than this. He knew it. He just knew it. But knowing was not the same as doing, and he was trapped here, amongst these ignorant iconoclasts, many of whom would sooner silence his voice than allow him to speak the truth. How their ignorance saddened him so. He didn't want to hurt anyone, he just wanted to make them understand. A faint whistling noise caught his ear. Baffled, the boy glanced about, searching for its source. Lorgar looked left. Lorgar looked right. Lorgar found nary a soul in sight. Even the ground beneath him was dead and still, wholly devoid of any semblance of life. Then where? Above. A beam of light slammed down from the very heavens above and alighted before him in a pillar of fire. The impact of such blasted from his very feet. He recovered quickly. This was nothing compared to the lashes Father often gave him and tumbled to his feet, ready to face whatever had come to claim his life. As the smoke cleared, he beheld something marvelous. Not some fallen shard of rock or metal from the stars, but a burning man wrapped in golden light, bearing strange black markings all over his body. His skin was pale and his eyes a vast glowing gold, pupils in the strange shape of a cross. An eerie black staff was clutched tight in his right hand, while a series of rippling black orbs hovered over his shoulders, shifting and stirring in the dry wind of Caucus. He had landed, quite literally, standing up. It must have been awful on his knees, and then he saw him. "Hello there!" His smile flashed forth. "Don't be afraid, we come in peace," Lorgar choked. "We?" He soon had the answers he sought, for strange metal boxes' pods fell from the stars above to land behind the golden man, striking the dusty soil of Caucus one by one. Strange creatures of green emerged from those metal cages behind him. Some had painted themselves orange, others black, and still more gold. Those pods falling from the stars, one after another. In no time at all, they numbered well over 100, more even. One pod, closer than the rest, disgorged a strange being bearing green skin, red eye, and long ashen hair. Unlike the other brutish green creatures, this one was most emphatically female, wearing an outfit almost solely composed of black and white frills. She stumbled free from her restraints and moved to stand beside the golden man at his right hand, as a servant would. Curious. Aside from a brief pang of curiosity, Lorgar paid the green woman and these aliens little mind. He only had eyes for the being before him. Smaller than him perhaps, but still tall in a way most mortals weren't. His very presence radiated divinity, a peaceful serenity that he himself had sought all his life. To bask in his presence was holy. To stand before him nearly brought him low. Lorgar gazed upon a glowing god. Such was the only moniker he could think to give him. This great golden giant, smaller than him perhaps, but still tall in a way most mortals weren't. Despite their disparity in height, he was truly larger than life. "You must be Lorgar." He held out his most holy hand to him. "I'm Naruto. Please Tzeentch." The would-be primarch recoiled, shocked. "You know my name?" "Of course I do." The blonde chuckled up at him with rueful amusement. He didn't get any further than that, and in hindsight, perhaps it was for the best he didn't. Lorgar put 2 and 2 together in his head and got 5, naturally. This was him. The one from his dreams. He must be. He'd come to help him enlighten this world. At long last, he crashed down to a knee and bent his head. "Command me, Lord." Silence stretched over the desert, nearly stifling in its disparity. His god sighed. "Damn it, Big E, did you plan this?" A bemused rumble passed through the assembled army of greenskins. Lorgar ignored it, and in doing so, failed to see the god's confusion. By the time he raised his head, it had already passed, and his savior had composed his glowing visage into something vaguely resembling composure once more. He looked tired, bemused but tired. "Rise." He almost seemed to sigh the word, yet surely that was his imagination. Just stand up, you know. There's no need to kneel." There very much was, but he knew his god was being magnanimous, surely, and so rightfully remained on his knees. His golden savior seemed to recognize it, and clicked his tongue at him. "Why are you all the way out there?" Did he not know? Surely this was but a test. He mustn't fail, and so bowed his head further. "I was serving penance for my transgressions." That golden gaze narrowed. "What transgressions?" Shame colored his face. "I broke a water jug, and you were banished for it, only for a week." This time, there could be no mistaking the strangled outrage noise his deity made. "A week?" His head bowed deeper. "It was better than taking 10 lashes from father, my lord. No father should raise a hand to their sons." Why did those words hurt so much? "Corfaren will be angry now that you've come." He was babbling now, he knew, but he couldn't help himself. He was just so ecstatic. "He preaches of the 4, not the 1. Many will not listen to you." The golden god laid a hand on his bald head and shushed him. In an instant, Lorgar felt a calm presence settle over him, perusing his thoughts as one might a tome. He allowed it. His mind was an open book, he had nothing to hide. Indeed, he was humbled by his Tzeentch. Sweet certainty. Perhaps, once upon a time, this Naruto had been mortal. Now, he'd become so much more. Through blood, sweat and tears he had toiled until the moment of his ascension. Here was one who had earned their divinity. But why was his smile so sharp, now? Take me to this Corfaren. When was the last time he'd been this angry, this furious, livid? Naruto exhaled heavily, seized that anger, locked it up in a box, and buried it deep within his heart. Simply put, he'd seen it all. Lorger's painful past wasn't just pushing his buttons, it was pushing all them. Simultaneously. The torment and abuse he'd suffered, the beatings, everything. And yet for all that, he wasn't on the verge of going berserk. He'd gone past that. Past hot, past cold, right into numbness, the likes of which he'd not experienced in an age. Because you see, Lorger was what he could have been. Alone, beaten and abused, forsaken by everyone and everything. This mustn't register on an emotional level. He couldn't afford to let it, if only because he could feel Korn lurking, ready to pounce if he gave into his rage. Already he could feel his orcs responded to his anger, ready to lash out the moment he did. So he didn't. He took his anger, channeled it inward, closed his heart, and focused. When his eyes opened, he knew what he had to do, what should have been done a long time ago, what he would do, what he must. The whelp had returned 6 days ahead of schedule. Unacceptable. Completely, utterly unacceptable. Clearly he'd been too lenient. Corfaren saw his approach long before he entered the encampment. It was impossible to miss Lorger, not just by his bald head, but the boy's sheer size. Even at such a young age he loomed head and shoulders above many. He could have been so much taller, but he walked with slouched shoulders and wrung his hands, unable to quite stand up for himself. But he hadn't he? He'd deliberately defied him, disobeyed his edict. That wouldn't do. He needed the boy weak and servile for his plans, time to remind his pawn of its place. Oddly enough, he wasn't alone. There was a man with him, a strange glowing fellow that radiated an ominous aura. And what was that great green glob looming in the distance? A trick of the heat, perhaps? His mind must be playing tricks on him. Regardless, he paid it a little heed. He met his son at the outskirts, whip in hand, bridling with indignation. All the while, he was aware of the eyes upon him. He would show them, oh yes, show them all. A demonstration was needed, a scene to remind the encampment that he, and he alone, ruled the wastes. Fool of a boy! He snapped the lash just short of the boy's feet, simultaneously whipping himself into a towering fury, the better to intimidate this boy who could so easily break him. Not that he ever would, of course. He'd long since been broken by fear. Why have you returned? He spat at him, spill flying from parched lips. I told you not to approach me until you served your penance. I'll have you whipped for this. Whipped, I say. On your knees! The boy shied away from him. Father, please. On your knees! A hand clamped down on his shoulder from behind. Would you care to repeat those words, you soulless son of a bitch? When had the blonde one gotten behind him? Said hand spun him right round. Corfaren never saw the blow that struck him. One moment the blonde man was staring at him, scowling, and in the next, the dark cardinal found himself flat on the ground, a hand wrapped around his throat. He gagged in surprise, clawing at the fingers slowly crushing the life from him. The blonde berserker dangled him a meter off the ground, leaving his feet flailing feebly in the air. Held him there now, his face reflecting nothing but utter disgust. And so he spoke, that golden god. You reek of chaos. Corfaren froze. I know not what you mean. Yes, you do. That scowl became a smile. Just as I know all the pain you inflicted upon that poor boy, I made sure to remember it all. The cardinal gulped mere moments before he found himself flung to the ground, leaving him on his back. A boot stomped on his chest, pinning him there. Listen well, Corfaren. His tormentor crouched down before him, hissing softly in his ear. Soon you're going to start looking for the right words. A hand closed around his head, stroking the underside of his chin with intent. And until you say them aloud, I'm going to continue torturing you. Torture? I'll make you experience the pain you inflicted upon Lorger. The blonde continued with blasé disregard. So start reaching into that brain of yours. Find the magic words to make me stop. Convince me to forgive you for everything you've done. Forgive you for existing at all. Indignation bridled within him, high and mighty. You dare touch. A bloody trench opened in his chest, rendering his words a shriek of pain. Naruto stared down at him, golden eyes blank. Have you discovered the words yet? I am blessed. You cannot kill. Something flashed across his face, obliterating his right eye. Perhaps the proper words have come to you now. He tried to speak, but found none. Naruto took his left fingers, prompting another shrill scream. More would soon follow as he turned his attention elsewhere. Wrong, to his arm, now. Wrong, followed by his leg. Wrong, all the while he kept screaming, as Lorgar looked on silence. Wait! Corfaren flung up the stump of an arm and finally managed to rasp out a word, trying to beg. You don't understand what you're doing. The great powers can give you so much, make you more than what you are now. You have but to let them in. Those awful eyes flashed like Korn's balefire itself, black and cold as the darkest pit. I'm well aware, Kor whimpered. Then you don't want to do this. Kill me and they'll be furious with you. Spare me, and I can give you everything you've ever wanted. His would-be killer tilted his head. Can you now? No. Yes. A moment of silence followed. His assailant took a deep breath. The cardinal dared to hope, then die. Naruto stabbed down with his staff. Corfaren died as he lived, screaming. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.